broadcasting from deep in the Eublepharis galaxy, on a small planet called Geckonia, east of the Albino Hills and south of the raging Leucistic River, comes the one, the only Gecko Nation Radio.
Good evening, citizens of Gecko Nation. Today is November 9th, 2014, and it is great to be back on the air again. And of course, I am here with my co-host, Mr. Tim Walton. Tim, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you, Dave?
Doing good. Folks, as you know, tonight we had our regularly scheduled shows with Anastasia Haraldson of NetBug. Unfortunately, Anastasia had some family matters that just came up yesterday that are kind of affecting her doing the show tonight. Nothing too crazy. She's okay, of course. But we're going to reschedule her show probably for another couple weeks. So she's definitely going to come on. It's just a matter of when, okay, because her schedule's kind of busy in the relatively near future. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. But Tim and I did some talking, and we're gonna put together a show for you tonight. I'm not sure if we're gonna go the whole 2 hours. We'll see, but we're gonna stay on the air. Also, want to let everybody know that in Gecko Nation Marketplace, the auction is live. The auction for Christina's pet sanctuary. Okay, if you guys remember, we had Christina on a few months back. She runs a legitimate animal rescue sanctuary here in Pennsylvania. Very, very nice operation she's got going on. She takes in alligators, snakes, turtles, furry animals, all kinds of stuff. She's, something like that costs a lot of money to run. So what I want to do is, at least once a year, I'd like to do a little fundraiser for her. And so what we put together was a auction in the Gecko Nation Marketplace group. Some of the best breeders donated some animals. John Scarborough, Gecko Boa Reptiles, Marsha McGinnis, MS2 Enterprises, Gecko Babies, Jessica Smith, Airway Geckos, FTG Morphs, a lot of beautiful animals. I put a few up too. If I forgot anybody, I apologize. There's a lot. I think there's like 16 different auctions. Okay, and I know a lot of people are a little undecided about how they feel about auctions, but this is for a charity. This is for a good cause. Okay, so check them out. If you're not a member of Gecko Nation Marketplace, apply for membership, and I'll let you in. In fact, I'm keeping an eye on that as we do the show anyway. So, and the auctions are doing pretty good. As you guys know, we've kind of decided to move away from doing the news segment. We're going to be Steve's going to be focusing more on doing the audio and video stuff of the show, which is what he's. I mean, he's great at the news, but he's just awesome at what
it's his forte.
Yeah. His forte is doing the audio and visual stuff. So he's going to be working on cool stuff for us. But when important things come up, we will certainly have him come on and tell us about them. If there's U.S. ARC updates or anything, really serious that you guys need to know about, he'll be popping in every once in a while. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Now, before we go further into the show, I just want to let everybody know that Gecko Nation Radio, of course, would not be possible without its amazing sponsors. We love our sponsors, everyone. Our sponsors keep us going, and we're proud to have them. So go ahead and check them out real quick, and we'll be right back.
Gecko Nation Radio is a David's Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. Gecko Nation Radio is sponsored by Reptiles Express is the absolute best live animal shipping company with great low rates. Debbie is the queen of customer service and will make sure your precious cargo gets to where it needs to. They also have a wide array of shipping supplies from deli cups, snake bags, heat packs, and more. Visit reptilesexpress.com and become a member today. Longhorn Geckos is a father and son collaboration. Daryl and Kate Burton specialize in the best Super Tangelos, Pastel Raptors, White and Yellows, and really nice wild types. Follow them on Facebook at Longhorn Geckos and on their new website coming soon. Ohio Gecko is famous for amazing tangerines, snows, and other very unique leopard gecko projects. Thad also has some incredible fat tail morphs available from stingers to starbursts. Visit him online at ohiogecko.com and at expos in the Northeast. He is also the owner of geckoforums.net. Dale's Bearded Dragons is your one-stop source for any reptile supply products that you may need, from Exoterra, Zoomed, Rapashi, Repcal, Fluker, and much, much more, and all at 20 to 50% cheaper than your local pet store or big chain pet store. They are also the biggest reptile supply distributor at most of the Northeast expos. Contact them directly online at dalesbeardeddragons.com or message me on Facebook and I'll put you in touch with the owner. And if you're looking for quality food for your dubia roaches, crickets, mealworms, and superworms, look no further than MS2 Premium Insect Chow. Made with reptiles in mind, it contains no dog food, cat food, or chicken mash. Using only vegetable proteins and high-quality ingredients, MS2 Premium Insect Chow will have your feeders making a beeline for it. Contact ms2ent.weebly.com, or it can also be purchased at Rainbow Mealworms and AB Dragons.
That's right, folks, and use the code GECKO, all in caps, with AB Dragons, and you're going to get a standard 5% off credit off of any of your orders. Okay. All right. So Tim, what's new, man? What have you been up to?
I literally walked in my house, getting home from work about 10 minutes ago. So just trying to get settled in, get my computer started up, and get ready for the show. How about you?
Yeah. Well, to me, it was more just cleaning gecko tubs and everything today, and
cleaning
just getting
poop?
away from that. Cleaning poop, you know how it is.
The life of a professional reptile breeder.
Let me tell you, a lot of people really don't get. I mean, they get it. The people that really love reptiles get it. But when you're working with all these different genes, it really is genetic art. It is like you're an artist at what you're doing, and your art. It's not like you can just pick up a paintbrush and do a painting like Bob Ross used to do in an hour or so. I mean, your art takes years to develop, and I think a lot of us appreciate it. Those of us that really are into it. But I think for the most part, a lot of people don't appreciate all that's gone into getting these morphs where they are all these years. What do you think?
I completely agree. And if anybody wants to go and learn more about, some of the beginnings of some of these morphs, I recommend that they go to geckoforums.net.
Wow, you beat me to it. I was going to ask you that very important question.
Oh, I thought you forgot.
No, I didn't forget. I was working up to it. I was building up to it, but that's cool. Oh, we got the chat room's filling up. Let's see, who do we have? We have Alan Thomas. We have Brooke Pulaski, Elsa Borzoi, Rachel Gratis, Sean Maloney, and Mr. Steve Barker. What's up, folks? Tonight we're going to also open up the phone lines for you guys. We really are kind of just winging it tonight. We're going to talk about whatever and just see where we go because our guest isn't with us. The call-in number is 646-478-5331. So you guys can feel free to call in, ask us questions, comments, whatever. Give us a topic of discussion if you'd like. Is there anything you guys would like us to touch on? Just let us know. So, a lot of people don't even know too much about you, Tim, because we've never really interviewed you as a guest. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and, so people have a little bit more info on you.
All right. Well, I've been keeping leopard geckos for, 22 years or 23 years. I got my first one when I was about 12 years old, and I have always kept geckos ever since then. There's never been a time in my life where I didn't have leopard geckos, and it's just grown and grown as I've gotten older, and it's, you know, expanded. I've had times where I, you know, had more of the rare species, and, you know, the last few years I kind of got back into leopard geckos and got into some of the morphs a little bit more. I am a fireman in New York City, and I have a 2.5-year-old son, and his mother and I live together. We live in Carmel, New York, which is about an hour north of New York City. And I try to juggle being a dad and working and having tons of reptiles. And so I know how you feel when it's, you know, when your colony gets to a certain size, and your pets and your hobby gets to a certain size, there's always something that's hungry and needs to be cleaned, right, Dave? Always something. There's you never get home and say, oh, everything's cleaned, everything's fed, I'm gonna put my feet up, I'm gonna watch a football game or do this with my son or do that. So it's a constant for me and my life lately. It's a constant juggling act of trying to distribute my time wisely.
You left out one important factoid about yourself, and that is that you drive a Prius.
I do. I love my Prius. And if anybody listening, I just saw a post from another reptile guy who's on, you know, who some of you may recognize from YouTube or from Facebook, Steve Tillis. And I didn't even read the whole post, but I saw that he recently switched over to a Prius, and he loves it too.
How good is it on gas? Is it really good?
50 miles per gallon.
Wow.
I drove from I took it to Tinley last year. Excuse me, 2 years ago, and I figured out that it cost me about $65 in gas each way to go from New York to Chicago.
Wow, that is cheap. That's not bad at all. That's cheaper than an airline ticket, I think.
Yeah, and I took the whole family.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I have a Ford Escape, and it's definitely not that good on gas.
Is she still limping around? You get her patched up or what?
It's a struggle. Yeah, I like fixing cars, and I'm trying to fix my own. And yeah, it's not that easy. Everything is the engine compartment is so tight where, you know, there's like no clearance. You have to buy all these special tools just to get at stuff, and you know, it's a bit of a headache, but I like the challenge, and I like learning. I like knowing that I can fix my own cars, and I like doing things myself, you know?
All new cars are like that.
I know. It's very efficient space-wise, but it's hard to work on. But you know what? I've been working on all my cars all my life. I've been building all my racks all my life. I've been, you know, doing everything on my own, and it's not only saved me a lot of money, but it's given me valuable skills that, you know, a lot of other folks just don't have. And, you know, to be able to build a rack in an afternoon, you know, for $100, as opposed to buying one for $600, you know, that's good when you can do that, you know. So
yeah, I wish I had the time to build racks and tinker around with stuff, but my time is very limited. I guess one thing I also didn't mention earlier is I've also worked for several different professional breeders and reptile breeding businesses. If people listen to the show, they know recently we had Mike Lehman on, and I worked for the Gourmet Rodent in the past when I lived in Florida for a few years, and I also worked for Eugene Bissett and Cindy Bissett of Ophiological Services, who was actually the first professional reptile breeder. So
really?
I think that's something very interesting. And then I also worked for Bob Guerriere of Ancient Reproductions, who's another snake breeder down in Florida.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's cool. Yeah.
I was actually thinking about trying to get Eugene and/or Cindy to come on and do an episode, but I have not been in touch with them about it yet.
Do you think it's like a requirement for folks that, want to get involved in this as a business, that they at least try to work in a pet store or work around animals or work for a breeder if that's opportunity arises? Do you think it's valuable to do that?
What I think is more valuable is to actually, because we all kind of get to a point, if, it seems like nowadays most people, if they're thinking about doing this professionally or even just kind of part-time and having a reptile breeding business, not necessarily dedicating, quitting their jobs and doing it full-time, but just doing it part-time, I think people should really kind of network and go and visit some other breeders and get a feel for what it's like. Not necessarily that you have to work for them, but just to kind of see how other people do it, because we kind of get locked in, with the way that we do our own things, and to go kind of experience a couple different breeders' keeping methods and husbandry methods and, room setups, I think is a very valuable tool. Ben Morrell of Australian Addiction that we had on recently, they've certainly done that. And if you go check out their website, australianaddiction.com, they actually have a section of their website where they have pictures from other people's breeding facilities. And I think that's a really valuable tool, especially now with the internet and, getting to know, so many people from all over the country or all over the world. I think it's a very valuable thing to be able to go check out, the way they do it.
I know. I'm actually thinking about getting an apprentice here, somebody to help me. It's getting to the point, my operation, where it's tough. I mean, I'm getting everything done, but I'm at the point where I could benefit from some help and give me, free up some of my energy so I can devote it in other areas. I mean, right now I got to prioritize so much because of, just all the different things I'm taking on. And just for instance, like finding the time to organize this auction was difficult for me. And, and I got it done, yeah, but, it's just on top of everything else I'm doing. It's like time management becomes like really important. And I never really understood how valuable my time was until I didn't have any. And when they say time is money, it really is. I mean, so I don't know. I'm going to see if I can. And that's the other thing, though. But who do you trust? Like that's my biggest problem. Like, I want to bring somebody in to help, but it's like, all right, well, then that takes me up to the next level. Now, do I got to worry about, God forbid, if somebody gets hurt while they're here, or, so what if somebody steals things? What if somebody, mixes up my genetics somehow? I mean, when you don't have, when your hands aren't in it, and you're trusting others to do it the way you do it, they'll never do it the way you do it. And that's like the biggest thing for a lot of us. And I know Matt and I have talked about it too. And as our collections grow, we kind of become literally like mad scientists, because our brains do remember all the genetics that we're working with, and we know what each one of these we have 1,000+ geckos. We know what's in each one of these geckos when we look at it. We really do. Our brains remember all this stuff. We have little notes on our tubs and stuff, but it starts getting, to the point where you need help, but you don't know how to trust somebody to do it right. Do you have any advice for me, Tim, on that?
It's, in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of, trusting somebody, and it is very difficult because you have your facility in your house, so you're bringing someone into your home, so that's difficult. But in terms of having someone help you out, you kind of from what we've discussed, in my opinion, it's something that you have to do. And if you do it, and say, for instance, someone that you trust comes in and steals a couple geckos, yes, it's horrible and everything else, but it's kind of like nothing ventured, nothing lost. You kind of have to go about it intelligently, see if you can get somebody that is a friend of a friend, that is, that somebody could recommend, and someone that you could trust, and hopefully, it works out for the best. You kind of give them not too much space in the beginning, keep an eye on them, and as the relationship grows and hopefully the bond and trust grows, you kind of entrust them with a little more and a little more, and you take it from there. Obviously, you're not looking to bring on a full-time person to be doing 40 hours a week for you, but
no, like one day a week, I think would be good.
Yeah, exactly, to start off with, and if it goes well, you can increase it, and if it doesn't go well, you could say sayonara. For that's actually the gourmet rodent. When I worked for them, it's and still, from what I understand, it is today. Is they always have openings pretty much for trustworthy employees. And they you don't start off making $30 an hour, but you start off at the bottom, and if you put your time in and you work well, you can work your way up, and all their managers, except for Mike, were hired from in-house. When I worked for Ophiological Services, they had kind of like one manager, kind of like one full-time guy, and then maybe 4 to 5 other part-time employees, and they actually had the way he did it, which I wasn't happy about at the time, was you kind of worked for free for a while to kind of prove that you wanted to work there, and you had the dedication to keep coming back and all that stuff, and before you actually started getting paid. And then when I worked for Bob at Ancient Reproductions, I was recommended through a mutual friend, and and he was the same as you, where he was breeding in his own house, so he was entrusting me, with his entire house, and after working for him for several months, he actually trusted me enough where I had the security alarm combination to go and work while he wasn't even home. But that grew over
hold
time.
On a second. But wait a second. So you mean you worked for free, and you had a problem with not getting paid?
Yep. For not the whole time, obviously, but when you're a struggling college age kid, you're and you go work part time. There aren't many jobs that start you off at $0 per hour. But but yeah, I guess I guess if you're a college kid and you're interning, that's a different story. But I wasn't getting any credits for cleaning poop at the time. At the time I wasn't happy about it, but I knew I wanted to work with the animals, and if that's what it took to work with the animals, I was willing to do it. At the time, I was 18 or 19 years old. My parents didn't support me in that. They disagreed. They said, "You're crazy," but I went ahead and did it anyway. And it turned out being a very, very valuable experience. That's actually how I got my time with working for Eugene is kind of how I got in with Vin Russo. I was got friendly with John Heiser, who's a member of the Long Island Herp Society, on the board with the Long Island Herp Society, and he's always been a gecko guy. And so I would always talk to him at the shows, and I had met Vin Russo, who was, his good friend, who has always had the booth next to John. And I would always talk to him, and then I heard Vin Russo on Reptile Radio mention that he was friendly with Eugene. So then I started talking to Vin and said, "Hey, Vin, I used to work for Eugene." So then that sparked our relationship, and Vin actually has had a couple break-ins where he's lost valuable animals that he's had them stolen. He has he maybe has one or two employees at a time. His facility is basically run by himself and one or two other people, and he actually moved his facility a couple times, and the current location, I'm one of only a handful of people that have ever been there because he trusts me, because of my previous relationship and work with Eugene, I guess is part of it, and I've kind of grown, and I feel it's a very valuable thing. I'm sure everyone that listens to the show has heard Ron Tremper talk about, your reputation is everything in this hobby and business, and to build it is not easy, and to repair it if you make a mistake is almost impossible. So I'm honored that a guy like Vin, would have me to his facility, and it's funny to hear other people talk about how they'd love to see his place, and he's kind of like, "No, sorry, I don't let visitors in there." And I'm very honored
that. I get asked
that
all the time too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're letting in the house. You could let an innocent person in, but then they could tell their buddy, "Oh my God, I scoped out Dave's joint, and I got cameras and stuff everywhere. I even booby trap stuff. So watch out, folks. You're gonna come into my place." But
you're gonna get electrocuted.
I'm not saying, but there are definitely
I hope
some tricks.
I hope if you have some prospective employee come over that you disable all booby traps.
Yes, I will.
That's in terms of a liability. I think that would be your number one worry right there, Dave.
I know. We got a caller on the line, Tim. Let's see, caller from the 978 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, who's this?
Can you hear me? This
Yeah.
is this your Facebook buddy, Chad.
Hey, Chad, what's up? Chad's the guy who comes up with all the great show ideas. How's it going?
Yeah, I give you a lot of show ideas. Now,
what's up?
Now, I'm saying you need a lot of help on expanding your business and stuff. Maybe you should have a show with people that have employees, like Brian from BHB or something, and they could help you maybe.
That's a good point. We had Brian on a while back, but all we talked about was animal bites. But Steve Sykes talked a little bit about that on his episode, and that's a good idea. I mean, to have somebody that's already been through that, I think somebody that's just going through that whole thing would be perfect for an episode, because they're experiencing that next level right now.
Yeah.
And
because Brian, he has a lot of employees. Mm-hmm. He has just a couple.
I know.
I
mean, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying something like Brian or somebody else that has a nice facility with maybe a couple employees, maybe 5 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something we should do, Tim. How to build. We should do a show. How to build a business from, taking it from your house to that next level. And Matt's basically at that point. He's in his own facility. When you have to worry about employees, it becomes a different ballgame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, Dave, it's the liability is something to worry about. But at the same time, also you're working with geckos. When I worked for Eugene, he was mostly working with Burmese pythons at the time. So it's interesting to let kind of inexperienced herpers into your house to let them work with 15+ foot Burmese pythons than it is with leopard geckos.
That's true, but you never know what could happen to it. There's, Murphy's Law suggests that anything that can happen will happen, so you never know.
Oh yeah,
but, hey, Chad,
and they certainly do.
Chad, what do you? Why don't you give out? You have anything you want to promote? I mean, you do. You definitely given me a lot of ideas. By the way, folks, Chad messages me on Facebook and gives me great ideas for the show. So if you'd like to promote something, Chad, while you're on the air, go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta say, it was nice to see all the different variety of the Halloween masks when I did that post.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I gotta say that's pretty amazing is how Brian from BHB keeps on track of all of his different genetics and stuff, because he has a lot of different morphs for snakes.
How does he do it?
Oh, I have no idea, but he has a voice.
I know, it's hard.
I think he said something. Yeah, I think he mentioned something like 30,000 adult breeder snakes or something.
That's crazy. Wow.
But I do have a question about geckos.
Sure.
Now, I was on the JMG reptile website, and I've heard of snows. Now, what's this codom snows?
That's just their way of. They don't like this. I don't think they like using the term max snow. So they call the max. Yeah, they call the max snow codom snow, and technically it's not even really a codom. Technically it's an incomplete dominant trait. And but I call
actually,
it
Dave. Yeah,
slang.
I think that was something that we kind of we might have missed a little bit when we had Ben on. But yeah, there's no such thing with genetics. There's no such thing as codom. That's a totally herper only used term.
Snake breeders use it.
Yes, but it's you'll only hear it from herpers and biologists and everything. People that study genetics. There's no such thing as codominant. It's the correct term is incomplete dominant. Sorry, Dave. I just wanted to mention that. Go ahead.
I think we should start a movement to try to get these things right, because if we start talking like this in front of real biologists and real geneticists, they're going to think we're crazy or from another planet. I think we should gradually
they'll say there's no such thing. That's all. That's what their answer will be. I don't know. They'll say I don't know what codominant means, but we have incomplete dominant. But go ahead with your answer, Dave.
I lost my train of thought, but
And then there's a line bred snow as well, which is right, Dave.
Well, yeah, we have the gem snow, the max snow, the line-bred snow, and the tug snow. And I don't know. My favorite is the gem snow. I like the fact that you can refine the snows and make them look better without producing a bunch of supers. I mean, I work with the max snows too. I mean, it's cool. Super snows are cool. But, if you make a super snow of something, it overwhelms the genetics of everything else. And, all you have is a super snow. I mean, you really can't see anything else in it. But, it's basically what you guys like. But is there anything else you want to mention, Chad? We got another caller on the line.
Dave, just to clarify, the max snow is incomplete dominant, correct?
Correct, incomplete.
And the tug snow, what's that one?
That's dominant, and gem's dominant, and line-bred snow is line-bred.
So it's technically a polygenic trait, correct?
What, the line-bred snow?
Yes.
No, supposedly it was literally line-bred. It was how they, started reducing yellow in them by selective breeding. Breeding the geckos with less and less yellow.
That's polygenic, just like bandits or tangerines. They're polygenic. They selectively bred for the with tangerines for the most orange ones, with bandits for the boldest ones.
All right. Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know about that. Rachel, you're right too. Rachel in the group is saying that Matt's saying that there could be a dominant to the line breds. Now, I haven't seen it in my work with them here. It just seems to be line bred, but there could be, somebody could have mixed in incomplete dominant in there too along the way. It could be, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. But go ahead, Chad. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before I take the next caller?
Oh, yeah. And anybody that watched my video on one way to handle a leopard gecko and was trying to guess the morph, it's actually a black pearl crossed to a charcoal.
Okay, and give out your channel for people so they can find you.
Actually, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can. I'll give it to you and you can post it.
Okay, or just you can put it in the chat room too if you're in there. Whatever you want to do.
All right.
All right. Cool. Thanks a lot,
thanks,
Chad.
guys.
I appreciate all your help. All right.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Caller from the 516 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hey guys, it's me, Vin Russo.
Vin, incredible timing. We were just talking about you.
Oh yeah, that's right. Stuff.
We were actually talking about what it takes when you become a professional breeder and you need some assistance and some part-time employees and kind of what it's like to make that jump from doing everything yourself to entrusting another person to come into your facility and work with your animals.
Yeah, that's
well, I don't. I do everything myself. No, it's difficult to trust anybody. I have one worker that works for me, and it's a good friend's son, so I've known him since he's a kid, and I've had him on board for a long time. So it's tough to just select somebody to work for you. But obviously, the bigger I get, the more people I'm going to need eventually. So I'm just going to have to, trust somebody eventually. But I'd rather keep it to the point where it's just people that I trust and know. And like over the summer, I had my nephew work for me. He's my nephew, so I trust him. But it's tough in our business because somebody can just come work for you, put something in their pocket and leave, and they can take $1,000 from you.
Yeah.
So it's real tough to trust somebody, and people. If I do hire people, they'd have to go through a pretty strict, protocol as to figuring out whether or not they're trustworthy. It's tough. It's a good question. I don't know how people do it, but I know Mike Lehman.
I was explaining how I booby trap my facility because I'm afraid of theft and stuff. But Tim mentioned that you've had people steal from you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've definitely had people steal from me in the past, and as far as booby trapping, that's a great idea, but I think it's illegal. I think it's against all OSHA regulations. So that you can't do. I think what happens is there was a point, and there still is a point in the industry now where there's a lot of valuable animals out there, and it makes it very tempting for people to want to steal them. So, as Tim knows, I've been underground for the last 10 years, and I haven't told anybody where my facility is. I use a P.O. box as an address, which is in like 10 towns over. I don't publicize where I am. I don't have people to my facility, and it's all for good reason. It's not like I'm paranoid. I've been robbed a few times, so after the first time, you're not paranoid anymore. It happened. So, but I was stupid.
Yeah.
In the past, I used to let people come to my facility, which was at my home. And that was just foolish, and I figured, why not? What's the big deal? You can trust people. But then I learned real quickly that you can't trust everybody. So I just keep it very, underground. and I'm going to keep it that way forever. I'm not going to have it so that people come to my facility. There's no reason for them to come there when I could take a picture with my iPhone and send them a picture instantly. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of requests too from people that want to see, see how I keep everything, and I don't know. I'd love to be able to just show everybody how I do things, but it's not smart.
No, it's not. You're better off being discreet about things. It's just safer. It's just like people who put on Facebook, "Oh, I'm going on vacation this weekend. See you next month." I mean, how foolish.
Yeah.
How stupid.
and you could go on and you could see that every single day. People post that stuff, and it's,
so to me, it's just
crazy.
Common sense. It's just common sense. You don't have screens on your windows. You have bars. You have an alarm system. You have a camera system. You have to have all those things in place and just have peace of mind. I think you guys it should be more important to mention that if you're going to have a commercial operation, security is a given. I don't think that's something that we should sit and talk about, security, because to me, any business, you walk by a business on the street and they have a roll down cage or they have an alarm system, it's just plain and simple. That's common sense. I think the one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of when they're running a reptile business is hurricanes, power outages, stuff like that. I mean, 2 years ago we had Hurricane Sandy up here, and I had no power for 3 weeks in my building. And I ran a gas-powered generator that I hardwired into the electrical system to run the oil-fired heaters and a couple of the racks to keep the place going. But I had to fill that thing with gas every 8 hours for 3 weeks. And
wow.
Luckily, I had a lot of gas cans on hand because you couldn't even buy a gas can that time. And I waited online every day for gas until I had enough. I was going through 15 gallons a day. And I did it. But, that should be something that should be discussed. You've got lives on your hands. You've got a whole collection of animals that if you have no power and you live in the Northeast where it gets cold, you could lose the entire business. So, to me, those are even more important factors in running a commercial business. I mean, having a backup generator and having a backup generator, because the generator I had died, and luckily I had another one. So, I mean, I went through hell and back that 3 weeks, and thank God I had, friends and neighbors that helped me out with getting gasoline and stuff like that. If I didn't have that, I probably could have been in trouble. So, and I had all of the precautionary measures in place, every one, and thank God they were there because I made it. But it could have been bad. It could have been real bad. I'm sure there's horror stories out there of guys who had power outages and lost whole collections.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that you can't, even mentioning that, Vin, is at the time, everyone was running on generator power for weeks at a time, and the lines at the gas stations running out of gas. So,
I waited, like I said, I waited on lines every day for hours, sometimes hours, just to get gas. And I got lucky. I mean, I remember driving around, seeing a gas truck, and I followed it right into a gas station where there was no lines. Got on line, and it took them a half an hour to unload the truck into the ground, and I filled up as many gas cans as I could. I mean, I got lucky so many times. One of my neighbors knew a guy that owned a gas station, called me up one morning. He's like, "Vin, come with me. You're going to go get gas." If those little things didn't happen, I could have been in big trouble, But you're right.
Yeah.
Nobody had gas. It wasn't like, oh man, I had to filling the generator was the easy part. Getting the gas was the hard part.
Yeah,
that storm was horrible. I lost my shore house in Seaside, and then from there, it traveled east and knocked my power out in Pennsylvania, 80 miles west. I'm sorry, and I was without power for over a week here, and I just happened to get lucky driving past the Home Depot that was selling generators because we didn't have a generator here, or else I would have been without heat for over a week with my animals. So that was crazy. That Katrina, Sandy thing.
I went to work the morning after it passed through, or like the morning as it was leaving the area, and I had to work for 24 hours straight, and then I actually the next morning I got on the phone and I was calling up places to find a generator, and I found a generator, luckily, and ran on that. But at the time I was kind of, all my animals and stuff were pretty much all right without heat. But actually, one thing that I've been considering, I need to sell my generator and get a new one. And one thing I've been considering because of that storm is getting a generator that could run on gasoline or propane, so that if something similar happens again, I'll at least have another option to go to other than waiting on those gas lines.
Most generators can be outfitted to handle natural gas. Most of them. So
yeah,
there's even like a part you can buy.
Yeah,
I've got a generator on my home that is connected to the gas line that comes into my house from the street. So that particular generator is also on a switch panel that as soon as the power goes out, it has a 10-second delay, and the switch panel turns the generator on automatically without me turning it on, and it runs my entire house. But my commercial building where I keep my business doesn't have a gas connection, so I can't do that. So I've got to physically run the generator myself. But that's hardwired into the system too. So you've got to, if there was gas in the building that I was keeping my snakes at, I'd have the same exact setup there too, because then I wouldn't have to run over there and turn it on. But there's a lot of things you can do, and then we learned a lot from that hurricane. And we had a practice run the year before with another hurricane, Hurricane Irene, we had up here, and I didn't have power for about 2 weeks for that one. But it was in the end of the summer, and it wasn't that cold, so it was no big deal. But that Sandy one was cold that week. Those 3 weeks, it was cold.
Yeah, I remember that. That's crazy, man. What would you suggest for somebody living in an apartment and something like that happens?
Hang a generator out the window.
Yeah, right. There's not really much you can do.
No, you'd have to run a generator out on the street and run electrical cords up to your apartment. There really isn't much you can do.
Or
but then
from
again,
the roof.
Why does somebody in an apartment have that many reptiles? You move them out to somebody's place that has them.
Mm-hmm.
During one of the storms a couple years ago, I lost heat and power at my house, and I took all of my reptiles to my girlfriend's place at the time, and because she had power, and luckily I didn't lose anything. I didn't have any animals get sick, but I was shocked to see a banded gecko chasing a cricket, and the banded gecko, must have been at 40 degrees for 24 hours at least, and was still chasing food around.
And that's a Coleonyx?
Yes, the Coleonyx variegatus.
Those come from pretty much almost a temperate climate. They're from Texas and
the Southwest.
So it gets cold there, so they can handle it. They definitely can handle the cold, but I wasn't worried about them, in terms of them getting a respiratory infection or anything like that. But I just was shocked to see it actually chasing a cricket at that temperature. I was even more surprised during the power outage. I mean, I had the generators running, the oil-fired heaters, and I set them at about 74, 72 degrees. So I kept the building in the low 70s, and I had I think 4 or 5 ball pythons that were incubating their own eggs. Because what I do at the end of the year is when I start running out of space in the incubator, I may leave a clutch or 2 or 3 with the females. So there was, I think, 4 females on eggs that whole 3 weeks, and I basically wrote those clutches off like, wow, they're not going to hatch. These snakes have been left at low 70s with no supplemental heat, like no heat tape on for 3 weeks, and it was near the end of their incubating the eggs. And I couldn't believe when I turned all the heat back on, and a week or 2 or 3 went by, and those clutches started hatching with no problems. I mean, the eggs hatched with the females still coiled on them, and they all hatched around 60 days. It wasn't like they took longer to hatch. I was banking on the fact that they would have taken like another 10 days or so. But every single one of them hatched, and all the babies were fine. So.
And at the same time, Vin, you while you're running around spending time, trying to track down gas and babysitting generators, you still have hungry snakes and snakes pooping and rats and mice to clean and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm still running the business. I mean, there was no snakes pooping because it was too cold. There was no snakes eating because it was too cold. So that kind of was left on the back burner. But, yeah, I still had to manage all the rodents. And, I lost a lot of money that week, that's for sure. And I lost a lot of valuable time feeding the snakes because, that happened October 28th, 2 years ago. So late October is when I started feeding all the snakes. So they lost 3 weeks of feeding, and it kind of really screwed them up. I mean, that following summer, I did horribly as far as boa constrictor litters. I mean, I had hardly any compared to what I usually do.
And did you notice that it kind of threw off the boas more than the pythons?
Definitely, the boas were way thrown off, but the ball pythons, if anything, they did better. I don't know why. I mean, it was amazing. It must have just really kicked them into gear, that cool spell for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, the heat's back on again, and then they started feeding, and bam, they all started developing eggs at the same time. So I kind of learned a lot from that, that one dilemma, in that I kind of try to copy that every year now, where I give them a quick cool spell and then warm them up. So we'll see. Maybe it works every year. We'll try. I mean, this year I tried it a little bit, was a little cautious about it, but this year I may try it again. But I won't do it with the boas, that's for sure.
So during that time, you had all of your rack heaters were off.
Off. Everything was off. There was no way I could supply enough energy to supply all of the heat tapes. The generators were only, I think, a 5,000 watt generator, so it could. I probably have a lot more than that running that whole place. So I mean, my building's pretty big. There's thousands of snakes in there, so my only option was to heat the entire space, keep that warm instead of trying to heat individual cages. Because one year I had a problem with electricity, and I tried heating the entire all the electrical tapes in the place, and what had happened was there was so much draw when they first came on that it blew the generator. So that's something you can't really do.
We got to ground the generator good. Did you ground it?
Oh, yeah, everything was grounded. You know what the problem was? The generator was probably a 3,500 or a 4,000 watt generator, and I was turning on probably 5,000, 6,000 watts at one time, so it just couldn't do it. It just couldn't handle
capacity.
Yeah, it was maxed out. Now, if it would work fine if I would turn them all on one at a time, and then the thermostats would level off after a while, and then turn another one on, then turn another one on, then I can get it going. But what would happen is if the generator ran out of gas and I wasn't there, an hour later or 2 hours later, I'd have to fill it up and go through the whole system again. So it was just it was just unrealistic. So then I just decided I'm going to hardwire the oil-fired heaters to a generator, and that's it. And then that worked better because you're heating the entire building instead. I mean, they'll be fine. They were all. I didn't lose any snakes. Amazingly enough, I didn't lose any snakes in that whole 3 weeks. they were all left in the mid 70s for 3 weeks. They were fine. They didn't, it didn't kill them. There was no respiratory infections or anything like that. So
I think we're actually lucky up here, and obviously, that didn't happen in the dead of winter, but I think people down south might even have more issues with the heat. I think if there were people down there that had their facilities, if they had a similar storm and they had their facility, and they were unable to keep it cool, I think they'd be losing animals a lot quicker if their facilities, got up over 100 degrees or whatever.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I know a friend down in Texas, South Texas, and he's got air conditioners running almost all year round down there because it's 100 degrees. I mean, and if it's 100 degrees outside, it's going to be 110 in your big room or something, So yeah, that's you're right. Down south, if you don't have an air conditioner running, you could be even worse trouble.
All right, Dave, you want to go ahead and take the mid-show break, and we'll be back in a few minutes?
Sure, we can do that. Hang tight, folks. We will be right back.
All right. Vin, are you good to stay on with us?
Gecko Nation Radio is a David Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. Gecko Nation Radio is sponsored by
GiantLeopardGecko.com specializes in giant and supergiant leopard geckos with a focus on selectively bred, exceptional lines of many different morph combinations, including high-end African fattails and crested geckos. With over 17 years of experience in herpetoculture, Keith Kiggins brings you quality, integrity, and value. Check out GiantLeopardGecko.com on the web and on Facebook.
Supreme Gecko is a great source for crested geckos, day geckos, and other species, including micro geckos. Wally Kern is a top-notch breeder and gecko enthusiast. Visit SupremeGecko.com for his available animals and supplies. Ron Tremper is the biggest contributor to leopard gecko morph making. Known worldwide for his amazing examples of living art, you can now download his Leopard Gecko Care app, his Morph Encyclopedia app called Leopard Gecko Pro, and visit his site, leopardgecko.com, to see where morphs are made. Rainbow Mealworms is the largest worm grower in the world and selling to the public since 1956. If you need the highest quality mealworms, superworms, and crickets for your pets, contact them at www.rainbowmealworms.net. abdragons.com is your source for the highest quality dubia roaches. Whether you're starting a colony of your own or just need feeders for your insect-eating herps, abdragons.com can't be beat in quality or price. They are also a huge distributor of FlexWatt reptile heat tape and have very competitive pricing. Check out abdragons.com online and on Facebook. Gecko Boa Reptiles is your source for the highest quality leopard gecko morphs and wild types, from white and yellows to radars, amazing tremper morphs, and rare subspecies. John is a world-class breeder and extremely knowledgeable. If you're looking for something truly special in geckos, contact John Scarborough at geckoboa.com and on Facebook.
That's right, folks. We are back, and we're going to go ahead and bring Tim, and we have our surprise guest, Mr. Vin Russo. All right, guys, you're back on the air. Everybody
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Can you hear me? All right.
Real quick, Elsa wanted us to touch on Tim. She wanted to touch on. I wanted us to touch on gem snows, and I'll just comment on that. Gem snows are really my favorite to work with because they seem to be like the cleanest snows when they come out. They just look so clean. And I've been working with the gem snows with the bell albinos for a while, and to be able to use the gem snow to refine a morph and not create superforms, that's the whole point to it, really. And so that's pretty much why I use it. But there's a little bit of history with the gem snow. It was first developed by someone, Reptiles by Gem, I think it was called. Tim, do you know anything about the history with the gems?
I do not.
No. All right. Well, also we'll get more information on the history of them, and maybe we'll do a whole show about it. But go ahead, Tim. Let's jump back in with Vin.
Vin, just keeping with the theme of emergency preparedness. Any other things that you learned? That you've kind of been prepared for over the years.
No.
No.
No,
I definitely agree with what you said. It's kind of it's just like kids. You got to be prepared for the unexpected.
Definitely. You need to be prepared. And like I said, if you're going to have a generator, have two of them. I don't think one is enough because, again, I'm repeating myself. I went through that hurricane. I went through 3 generators. I went through the one on my house, ended up dying, and midstream, and that was just on my home, and I had another one to back up that I used for that, and then the generator I had on my business, from running it, for weeks straight, changing the oil every couple of days, it still died, and I ended up, luckily I had another one for there, so I had a backup for both places. So I really don't think one generator is enough, especially if you have, like I have, a large business that your livelihood depends on. You can't just have one $500 generator sitting in your garage waiting. I would recommend 2. Always have a backup for your backup. You can never. It's worth every dime. You can never be too cautious about it. So, and have a lot of gas cans around. That's for sure. Especially if you're going to be filling it with gas like I was. I think I had 6 5-gallon gas cans. I still have them, obviously, and I think I even bought another 1 or 2 after the storm just to have on hand. But other than that, just be prepared, and because anything can happen. And if you have thousands of dollars invested in your reptiles, even just your pets, I mean, it's not even so much the investment part of it, your pet part of it. Who wants to lose all their pets because they didn't have a generator to keep the place warm?
Yeah, or even just even if you have just a few animals, just have some travel containers ready to go, and keep in mind wherever you're planning on going for the storm, you're maybe some heat pads or heat cables to take with you, or some heat packs if it's going to be an extended.
For leopard geckos, this is what I would suggest, folks, and for small snakes and stuff, if you can put them in little deli cups inside of a cooler and use a heat pack, you can heat the whole cooler with a little heat pack. And, those animals will be fine in deli cups for at least a couple of weeks, God forbid if they had to be, right? I mean,
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, even at one point, this was a couple of years ago, during that hurricane, this is more than a couple of years ago. This is back in the 80s. There was a hurricane called Hurricane Gloria, and I had my snakes in a warehouse back then. My brother and I had a wholesale business, and we were renting a big space, and we didn't have a generator because this was, again, it was the 80s, and there weren't even a lot of generators around back then. We never even thought of it. But we didn't have electricity for at least a day, and I remember saying to my brother, "This place is getting cold. We got to do something." And I made a fireplace out of a 55-gallon drum, like a wood burning stove, out of a 55-gallon drum, and I piped it out a window. So I literally made it on the spot. It was an old 55-gallon drum laying around the back of the building, and took it in, and we cut it up and cut a door in the front of it, put a chimney outside, and started burning wood. And then we heated up the space. And luckily we only had electricity off for a couple of days, but I even did something like that. So I mean, it sounds a little barbaric, but it worked. You just got to be innovative.
Did you stay there, and did someone spend the night there?
Yeah, I stayed there. I stayed there the whole time. I slept there.
And did you also do that when you were doing the generators with the last storm?
No, I figured out that each gas tank got me about 8 hours. So once I figured that out, I would fill it up at about 11 o'clock at night, and I'd be back the next morning at 7 a.m. and it would still be running, just about ready to peter out. So I was able to sleep a little bit that 3 weeks. So
yeah, I'm sure it was a very stressful time. At the same time, you have your family and your home to worry about.
That took a couple of years off my life.
But now I'm sure your emergency preparedness is so well planned out that
I could be on that TV show where they
Doomsday Preppers.
Yeah, I'll be a Doomsday Prepper. Yeah, I already did it.
It is, it's pretty crazy, but just in the back of my mind, you see that show, and I kind of had, have worked through several hurricanes by now, and I've seen other people's mistakes and learned from them, hopefully enough not to make them again. But one thing I have in mind is all the frozen rats and rats that I have in the garage might be some needed protein if those people's emergencies ever come to light.
Oh, I've got a whole rabbit colony I could live off of for years. Me personally. I'll eat them. I'll eat my rabbits. I'll feed them grass clippings and mulberry leaves, and I'll eat them. I could do it. I know. If I had to, I'll do it. I'll grow tomatoes, cucumbers, and maybe a couple onions to cook with the Hassenpfeffer.
I've often thought about, like, with insect-eating reptiles, what someone like me or, even smaller collections would have to do to keep them alive and well. You'd have to be able to get, produce your own insects and food for the insects. And, yeah, it's I don't know if a collection like that would survive Doomsday.
Well, I'm sure you guys both remember Burt Langerwerf.
Yes, I do.
Burt was a pioneer in reptile keeping, and he was also one of the most brilliant men I've ever met in my life. He spoke 7 languages fluently. He was a college professor in Holland, came to the United States and started a reptile breeding farm when nobody in their right minds ever thought that it could be done. And he did it basically on a shoestring budget. He made his own mealworms. He's probably the originator of the giant mealworms. I'm pretty sure he is. And he was growing them in a root cellar under a barn on his property, growing the mealworms. So there was no supplemental heat under there. The worms were generating their own heat. Now he lived in Tennessee, where it gets pretty cold in the winter. It snows there. And he did not heat the animals at all. And all of the animals he bred were kept outdoors. He was the first guy to commercialize the black and white tegus, and he harnessed the sun to heat them. He did not use electricity. So he created an entire ecosystem in order to his reptile business going. And he had no overhead, like literally zero overhead. He would get chickens from a chicken farm. They're dead chickens, and feed his tegus those chickens. And he raised the mealworms to feed a bunch of other reptiles he had, and he basically fed those mealworms garbage. So it can be done. If you're really smart, it can be done. I'm telling you, the guy was amazing.
I remember.
It's a shame that he passed away, but I learned volumes of information from this man.
Yeah, I remember him hearing him talk and meeting him at Daytona many years ago, and I from what I understood, I don't know if I read an article in one of the magazines or just from him talking. He kind of had all of his own cages set up. He made even his show displays he made out of aluminum. And had and made everything himself, and his cages at home were all south facing to to get as much sun, and he would go and open the cages in the morning and close them in the evenings to keep the heat in overnight, and it was and obviously it worked. He was a very good breeder of a lot of cool lizards.
Oh yeah, the guy was amazing. And you're right, everything faced south, got the perfect amount of sunlight in the cages, and he even built underground hibernaculum so that the reptiles can hibernate underground and get away from the cold. Because, a few feet underground, if you put a thermometer down there, it's 55 degrees, even if it's 10 degrees above ground. So the guy was just a genius. So, it can be done. It can be done. If you have the ingenuity and the smarts, you can figure out a way of keeping your reptiles, pretty inexpensively. Solar heat, you can get solar panels on your roof. I mean, there's a million things to do.
One thing
I'm thinking about putting solar power on the house because my electric bill is like $300 a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. Solar panels work. The only problem with solar panels is they need a feed from your power authority to get them running. So you still need that. The only way you could do it without the feed from your power station is to set up a bank of batteries. So that can be done too. My dream in life is to say, take care, big city life and big business. I'm moving to the Southwest.
Going off the grid?
Yeah, facing south on a bank of, giant batteries and solar panels on the roof and heating up my own water and growing my own food and growing my own rabbits to feed myself and my snakes and just live off the grid. That would be the ultimate scenario. But can it be done? Yes. Do I have the probably not.
What about the wife?
That's the whole thing. The wife, the family, everybody, they're going to say, what are you, out of your mind, Swiss Family Robinson? We're not going anywhere.
One thing I always consider, too, with a smaller colony, I have an inverter for my car that I originally bought to be able to run my computer off of the car's power. And it's just a small thing that easily I could hook a thermostat and a heat cable or heat pads up to if I was, say to move my whole collection or move a large portion of my collection to keep them warm while I'm driving. Something that's quick and simple and easy
that's an AC
get.
Converter. Yeah, an AC converter. They're like $30 at a Radio Shack.
It's funny,
my cigarette lighter.
I left it in a buddy's car, and he went tailgating one time, and the people that he was tailgating with had an inverter, kind of a bigger, fancier one that they had a crock pot hooked up to, and the crock pot was was too strong for their inverter, and it kept blowing the fuse or the circuit breaker on it. So he's like, oh, I got a little one in my car, that my friend left in there, that and that was mine. And sure enough, he went over, threw it in their car, and it worked fine. So
nice.
It's
so it can
the
handle
same
500 watts or 1,000 watts.
The same as what you talked about earlier with the generator. Just do some quick math and make sure you're not going to overload it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'm thinking about putting the solar on my house. It's they have these new things now where they'll put them on your house for free, and you gotta pay them back with the power that you save.
They charge you per kilowatt. I looked into that too. They're all all good methods. You just gotta make sure that if you're going to be living there for a long enough time, that it's worth your while to do. So solar heat is the way to go. It's the wave of the future, man. I mean, I've been to Europe many times for snake conventions, and for example, in Germany, everybody's got solar panels on their roofs. Even in Holland, I mean, they don't depend on the utility companies. They generate their own. Almost everybody's off the grid there, so that might happen here one day. Who knows?
I think we're getting to that point, little by little.
Yeah, definitely.
Dave, do you have a part of your roof that's a good south facing? That you have a good south facing side for the panels?
Yeah, I do, and I live in a community where a few people have already done it, and I think it'll work out well. I really do. Got a big portion of my roof that faces south, so yeah, it's just a matter of getting them to do it and making the decision to do it. And it's kind of like one of those steps where you know it'll work, but it's so new, it's hard to take that plunge. I don't know. So I gotta just say, all right, I'm gonna do it, and that's it. But I like talking to people that have done it already because they're really confident about it. So I think it's good.
I know
how it works.
I know some people that have done it and they're very happy with it, and they're the same kind of people that would make fun of me for driving a Prius, but when they see how much money they save on their bill and figure out the math. But Vin, in terms of what you said, I think it's also a great selling point if you were to go sell your house, even if they haven't paid for themselves yet. I think you'd be able to, in this day and age, if you show the prospective buyers your bills and can prove that if they spend a little more on your house, it'll pay them back in the long run, then you'll still recover your investment.
No, definitely. I looked into doing it for myself on my home. My business I can't because I lease the building, so I can't just put solar panels on my business, which I wish I could, but I can't. But in my home, I looked into a few different ways. I looked into putting them up there myself, paying for the whole thing, and getting the rebates from the local power authority, and that's still going to cost me close to $20,000. And the way I looked at it was, well, my electrical bills in my home are only about $200 a month, so that would take me a few years to pay back, so to speak. Is it worth it? So I'm juggling that idea, and I know Rich Hume from the Herp Society is working on a deal where he got a similar scenario that you guys were just talking about, where they put the panels on your roof for free, and then you pay them per kilowatt hour, and it works out to be about half what you're paying already.
A lease, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a lease, exactly. And then what happens is if somebody were to buy your home, you can transfer the lease over to them. So there's lots of, I'm looking into it right now too. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going to be the best way for me and whether or not I'm going to be here that long and, all that good stuff. So
One thing I do know from the research that I did is that, 8 or 9 years ago, they weren't as efficient as they are now, and the technology has improved so much that their efficiency has doubled, and the price has been cut in half in the past about 8 years. So if you've looked into them in the past, now would definitely be a time to look back into them, because maybe that payoff time or that payoff of the investment is definitely a lot quicker now than it was a few years ago. In addition to the rebates and other things that are going on.
Right. And keep in mind, if you do it, the generator won't do you any good as far as getting your power back. As far as the generated from the solar panels, you'd have to have a whole nother switch panel for your generator. So keep that in mind.
Well, wait a second. If there's a storm or something, wouldn't you? All right. Well, once the storm passes, wouldn't the solar still work for you? Wouldn't you still have power?
No, you need the feed from the power authority in order for that solar to work properly. Like I said before, and if you wanted to do it without that feed from the power authority, you'd have to set up a bank of batteries, which are very expensive. It's the only thing that's holding me back from doing it, because the way I looked at it was, wow, I'll just do my own, solar generated heat, and solar generated electricity, and I'll run my whole home. And if there's power outage, I don't have to worry about it. But I talked to a guy that installs them. He's like, no, you do have to worry about it because you need the feed from the power authority to get the thing running, because everything works to and fro. So if it's the power coming in and you don't have any power, you're using the power authority's power. But when the sun's up, then it's reversing. You're using the power from the sun and you're kicking back the over usage. So after all is said and done, you're even Steven with the power authority, or if anything, they may owe you a couple bucks. But you need that feed into the house in order for that whole thing to run. So if there is a power outage, you have nothing. You have nothing. You still got to use a generator, and you can't even tap it into your panel, because if the power comes back on, you can blow up the whole thing. So you got to run extension cords to things and do stuff like that.
Well, that sucks.
Now, I'm not an electrical engineer, but I'm pretty sure the information I'm giving you is pretty accurate. But maybe we should get an electrical engineer.
The whole thing that it depends on is the battery technology. As far as I know, and what Vin's talking about is that the battery technology has not gotten to a point where it's cost effective to buy the batteries.
Yeah, you need a giant bank of batteries. Like one guy was telling me, for my home, I'd need something like 30 car batteries. You know, that's a lot of batteries. And they're not car batteries. They're different types of batteries, but the size of car batteries. 30 of them, lined up, all connected, just to hold enough juice overnight to, then generate enough electricity the next day. So, it's not as easy as it is, but it can be done.
All right.
Yeah, so basically in that case, just for during a storm, you still have your generator, but still, I'm sure in 20 or so years, you'd still recover the cost of the solar panels, and it would still benefit you, to run the generator, during those few and far between storms than it is to not have the solar panels at all.
How about a wind turbine?
Yeah, wind generated electricity works good too, but you need wind. If there's no wind, you got nothing.
And I'm sure it would be the same situation as the solar panels, where the inverter and everything needs to be running on the grid to run everything.
All of the technology all of the technology is there, and I don't want to sound like a downer, but our government is too much in bed with the Middle East as far as oil production and buying and selling, and as long as that's happening, they're not going to put the time and energy into the wind and the solar energy to power businesses and homes. They're going to depend on the power we're generating on oil. So until that starts to wane, which is starting to happen now, because we're getting to the point where the cost is too high for the oil, then we're going to start really putting in the energy for the solar energy. So we're starting to see it just now start. Like I said, in Europe, they're way ahead of us. You go to Europe, and everybody's got a wind generator in their backyard and solar panels on their roofs. Everybody, not just somebody, everybody. And they're generating some kind of electricity for their homes, and they're off the grid. Because over there, the cost of oil exceeds what we pay here. So when we get to the point where we're not dependent on oil for everything, that's when companies will start really putting in the time and energy to do the research and the technical ways of creating smaller batteries to hold just as much power as bigger batteries, smaller solar panels that'll generate just as much electricity as these big giant ones they have now. So when that happens, I'll bet you, 30 years from now, there'll be one giant panel on the top of your house and one battery in your basement, and it'll run an entire house. But we're not there yet. It's just like cell phones. Yeah. Cell phones in the 80s were, the size of a lunchbox. Now it's, 2 inches across and fits in your pocket. So.
And it's pretty obvious when the regulations. I believe it's probably the same across the country, but in New York, when you get solar panels on your house, you can only get enough to produce 105% of the energy that your house uses.
Yeah, they don't want you making more than you have to sell it.
Exactly.
To make money.
And at the same time, there's a law that the company, that your power company in New York has to pay you, if your meter runs backwards and you produce that little bit more. But at the same time, you can't just put twice as many panels and then make money, because you'd be taking money out of their pocket.
Yep, exactly. So
but if you went off the grid,
topic.
But if you went totally off the grid, you could do it.
And if we keep going on that topic, we'll all be Doomsday clippers.
Oh man, it's funny. Well, I mean, at least we got some good information about, disaster preparedness. I mean, worst case scenario, folks, there are things you can do, even if you live in an apartment. Heat packs, keeping a good stash of heat packs on hand, a couple coolers. You put your animals into brumation for a couple of weeks. Put them cool them down, or I would say keep them warm in a cooler and put them in little deli cups is the best bet. But even if you have like a big snake, say you got a 5-foot or an 8-foot boa that you got to keep warm for 2 weeks, can't you put them in a big pillowcase, put them in a cooler with one heat pack, and change the heat pack? That'll keep it 80 degrees at least, right?
Hot water bottle if you can get hot water. I know during the hurricane, my hot water heater was still working because it had a pilot light that was run on gas. So I still had hot water. So if you fill up hot water bottles and
put them in a cooler with your snakes or your reptiles, they'll easily stay warm for 10, 12 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at the same time, if you live down south, then you could do it with cold water.
Yeah.
If you got to keep your animals cool.
Yeah. Just don't give up. Keep going.
Things we do for our animals. We suffer for these animals.
We do.
I
know I do.
If I'm traveling with just one or two geckos, in the wintertime, I don't even bother getting fancy. I'll just put them in my pocket, on the inside of a jacket pocket or something, and do it that way.
I always use a cooler whenever I, buy stuff. I always used to. To carry a little fanny pack, even one of those fanny pack coolers. Those are, they hold like a 6-pack. You can, fit a few geckos in there. It's funny, when I was building my collection, I would be one of very few people that would be walking around a reptile show with a cooler in their hand. And I found that really surprising that and I'd see all these people walking out of the show with their animals in their hand, and it's 10 degrees out, coming out of the New York show, and I'm like, Jesus, people are stupid. But, I don't know. It's just crazy.
Vin, one other thing I wanted to chat about tonight is how was your experience at the last Tinley show?
Oh, it was nice. I like going out there. It's it's a different crowd. It's nice to see different faces. You go to White Plains, you see a lot of the same faces over and over again. So yeah, it's nice to go out there once a year and see some different people and talk about snakes with different people. And there was a good crowd there. People were buying snakes, and luckily people were buying some of my snakes. And, so I did okay, and it was worth the trip, and I'll probably do it again.
And are you considering going out for the spring show next year?
I don't know. I think I talked about this once before. I don't like traveling a lot with snakes and, doing the show circuit thing. So, and it's a far ride. I mean, it's like 900 miles or something like that. So, and I tried booking a flight there, but the problem that I came into was there was no direct flight from New York, well, at least from Long Island to Midway Airport. They all stopped over somewhere. One was Ron Reagan Airport. One was down in
Georgia, stopped, and then it went up to Chicago. So the way I looked at it was all the flights that I could get out of New York, I'd have to be out of my house by 5 a.m. to be at the airport at 7 or 8 for a flight at 9 or 10. And by the time with all the changeovers that I got to Midway, it would be 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And then I looked at it, well, if I drive, I'll get there in 13 hours. So if I leave at 5 a.m., I'll be there by 6 p.m. And so I just decided I'll drive. And then I could take more stuff with me, so it worked out a little better. And I took another friend with me to drive along, but it was like a last-minute thing. And so, yeah, I don't think I want to do that twice a year. Once a year I could do, but twice a year, it's a little grueling, that drive.
And what about you, Dave? We're going to see you out in Tinley next year?
Not as a vendor. It's too much for me to get all my stuff out there. But I'd love to come take a ride and check it out. You know, that'd be awesome.
I bet you'd change your mind if you were driving a Toyota Prius.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe if you got room in the Prius, I'll hitch a ride and I'll help chip in for gas. Not that you need it, but
you need a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I'll pay for
it's just gas. Like the solar panels on your roof. You know, with the Prius, you need a little bit to get you started.
That's crazy. All right, folks. Well, what do you say we wrap things up for tonight and do it again next week? What do you guys think?
Vin, thanks so much for coming on last minute. We appreciate your time, and go ahead and give out your website and email address for everybody.
Sure, cuttingedgeherp.com, and you can get me at Vin at cuttingedgeherp.com. That's my email. So then you can see me on Facebook at facebook.com/cuttingedgeherp.
And any cool animals that you have available right now that you'd like to mention?
Sure, I got some cool stuff on my Facebook. I've got chondro or 2 left, some nice yellow ones. I've got maybe 1 or 2 of my leopard boas left for the season, and maybe 1 or 2 of my real nice hypo bloods or even blood boas left. So if anybody wants them, this is it. This is the end of the season, and they'll be gone, and we got to wait till next year again. So, and couple of maybe a Suriname boa left, a female, and maybe a couple Peru boa female left here and there, and some more island boa stuff I still have. I think I still have some Cape Hawkers around, but yeah, I try to update it regularly and put some pictures on there. I've been putting pictures from, blast from the past pictures on there for people to see stuff from way back when, and I'm going to do that like once every week, picture from the past, and every day I try to put in a new picture of something new and exciting. And it seems to be getting some attention, so that's nice. It's a new venue for me to be working with, that whole Facebook business page thing. It's nice.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Vin. We appreciate you donating your time, and we'll talk soon, all right?
All right, man.
Yeah, Vin, thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Good night.
All right. Wow, good show, Tim. Well, on a whim, we put together something nice, and that was really cool of Vin to stop by. Vin's got some of the nicest boas, really nice stuff, nicest snakes.
Nicest boas. He's got a lot of different nice stuff. Blue-tongued skinks, ball pythons.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? And I just remembered. I want to talk to him about blood pythons, and I even forgot that.
Oh, he's into bloods too?
Yeah, he's got some blood pythons that he works with.
Interesting.
I don't know why you didn't have faith in me when I told you, don't worry about tonight. It's going to go fine.
Well, it's not always that, I've done a show where nothing was planned, so I have complete faith in you from now on, and it worked out good.
And we now have a good emergency preparedness show to refer everybody to.
Right. I'm going to edit the title of this one and call it Doomsday Prepping for Reptile Keepers. I think that'll be a good title. What do you think?
Yep, with Vin Russo of Cutting Edge Herp.
With Vin Russo. That's right. Yeah, we did good. And I appreciate the people that called in. Thanks, guys. And, of course, all the folks in the chat room. You guys are awesome. No, we did good. So what do we? We'll wrap it up. All right. I'll let you go, Tim, and I'll go ahead and play the outro and come back with my closing remarks. All right.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Have a good night.
You too. Talk to you later, Tim.
Bye.
Gecko Nation Radio is a David Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. The jazz music you heard tonight was generously donated and created by Jeremy Turgeon of J&D Reptiles. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for the great musical pieces. You can check out Jeremy at J&D Reptiles on YouTube and on Facebook. And a very special thank you to our news anchor, graphic designer, and audio tech, Steve Barker. All the graphics, audio sponsor plugs, and music overlays were assembled by Steve. Check out Steve on YouTube at BC Barker Creations. He has some terrific videos for the herp community with amazing geckos and snakes. Please support the U.S. Herpetocultural Alliance and USARC. Gecko Nation Radio is proud to support both of these organizations. Please donate to USARC so that they have the funds needed to legally protect pet owners' rights nationwide. You can donate to the USARC Legal Defense Fund at www.usarc.org. If you would also like to learn about advocacy and how you can take action on a state and local level, please subscribe to the U.S. Herpetocultural Alliance newsletter and blog at www.usherp.org.
All right, folks, and just want to leave you with some closing remarks. I don't really have too much to say. I just want to thank my new co-host, Tim, for helping. I've been able to carry the show from the very beginning as the main host, and I think Tim is bringing just a wealth of not only experience, but herp experience, but also just a lot of good things to the show. He's got a really good ability. Tim is one of the best networking people that I've ever met. This guy knows everybody. Everybody likes him. He has been able to just get a lot of great guests on the show, and I think he's adding a lot to the show. And without Steve, things would be, pretty boring. Steve's been doing a lot for the show, too, and I can't thank them both enough. So I like the direction that the show is going. I think it's growing at a nice and steady rate, and I think what we're doing with the show is getting better and better. And we welcome your suggestions. Okay, I can take criticism well too. If you guys have anything that you think we could do better, you're welcome to tell me. I'll be happy to hear it, and I won't get mad at you as long as you're not telling me I suck or anything like that. But I'm not a professional radio show host, and each time we do this, we get a little better, I think. So it's all about being comfortable. There's a lot of people out there that are just afraid of public speaking and stuff like that, and I was always one of those people. But I made a decision to put myself in situations that make me feel uncomfortable so that I can get over it. And thank you, Gerard. But in over 2 years in doing radio, I'm really comfortable doing it now. And, I'm not the best radio guy there is. And, there's some people may not like the style of show that we do, and they may like a different show. That's cool, whatever you guys like. But we're just going to keep getting better, than we were last week, and that's what I hope to keep doing. So really appreciate all the fans, all the listeners, and, of course, our great sponsors. So as far as our sponsors go, I just want to mention them, and I'm going to play a song at the end for everybody. Number one, Dale's Bearded Dragons. Dale's Bearded Dragons is now selling FlexWatt heat tape. So if you guys, they are actually the new master distributor on the East Coast for FlexWatt. So they just have to add it to their website, which I'm pressuring Mario to do. But if you guys need FlexWatt, you want to get it at a great price, message me or message Dale's Bearded Dragons on Facebook. Or I can put you in direct contact with Mario, the owner, and he'll help you out. You can order up to 500 feet from him. All right. abdragons.com, the best place to get your dubia roaches, folks. Use the code GECKO at checkout for 5% off your order. They have the best dubia. They feed them highest quality foods and just really good roaches for your insect-eating feeders. Geckoboa.com, Gecko Boa Reptiles, John Scarborough. Excellent guy, excellent breeder. I got to tell you, I feel honored and privileged to be able to work with other great breeders that are good people and do the best at what they do. And I'm really happy, to be friends with John and, to see his work just evolving. Just awesome breeder. So check out geckoboa.com. Supreme Gecko, Wally Kern, another great breeder in the hobby, doing awesome work with cresties and day geckos, micro geckos, all kinds of cool stuff. And he sells supplies and food too. If you need it, check out supremegecko.com. OhioGecko.com is Thad Uncover. He's the guy that runs geckoforums.net. And, he's another great breeder doing some amazing work. Has some unique projects that are completely original to his collection, like the Starburst Fat Tail. He's got some really reduced pattern snows too, which are cool. Check them out. OhioGecko.com. And, of course, RainbowMealworms.net. We all love Jillian Spence. Jillian is the goddess of worms, as I call her, and she definitely goes out of her way to help the reptile community and the gecko community in particular. It's just great. So check out RainbowMealworms.net and mention Gecko Nation Radio. Maybe you'll get a good deal. Reptiles Express. Reptiles Express is by far the best company to use to get your FedEx labels. Not only are you going to get it at the best rates there are, but you can also get all your supplies. And if you're new to shipping, not only do they have the best customer service, but Debbie Price will teach you exactly how to ship your animals safely. Okay? It's not that hard. And if you've never done it before, it can be a little nerve-wracking the first couple times. But once you get the hang of it, it's like riding a bike. Really easy. I have a code for Reptiles Express. Everybody listening? The code is REROCKS. Okay? That give you a good discount. Ron Tremper, leopardgecko.com. He's giving free shipping, I believe, on a lot of his animals. Okay? Check him out. I think if you got to spend $100 or more, you get free shipping. And he's running a nice sale right now. So he's got some really cool stuff. So check out leopardgecko.com. GiantLeopardGecko.com. Keith Higgins is doing some great work. He's got some big giant Diablo Blancos, nice fat tails. He's running a couple sales too right now. He's got some nice stuff. Premium Insect Chow. That is the stuff to use to gut load your feeders. You are what you eat, folks, and so are your insect-eating reptiles to let them eat the most nutritious. Let those insects eat the most nutritious food there is. That's MS2 Premium Insect Chow. Last but not least, Daryl and Kate Burton from Longhorn Geckos. Brand new breeder coming on the scene with some amazing genetics. Daryl has spared no expense and invested in the best of the best. So check them out on Facebook at Longhorn Geckos. And their website's coming soon. All right, folks, you all are awesome. I'm off the air for now. I think next week we have Leapin' Leechies. We're going to talk about leechies. I think that's the show for next week. So I'm looking forward to that. Hope to see you all there. And see you in the group. Don't forget, we got the auctions going on in Gecko Nation Marketplace, and that'll be going on till Wednesday. It's not too late. If you have an animal you'd like to donate for the auction, message me on Facebook, and I'll put you in. If